Hello, everyone. I'm Ian Nicholas, joined for yet another episode of a Rams Revealed podcast with my co-host, Cortland Parrott. And we have with us today a guest that a lot of people know in the New Canaan athletic community, Bobby Rushton. He does a lot of different things. We're going to hit on all of them. He has a ton of different roles and things that he does for the town of New Canaan. So let's just start simply with Coach Rushton. How are you doing in quarantine?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it. And like I said before, I think what you guys are doing are great, and connecting with the community and getting the word out to more than just the kids that we see every day is awesome. So it's going well. Like I said, me and my dog Zeus and my fiance just kind of all shacked up here and hanging in there, but not so bad. Hope you guys are doing well and staying safe as well.
Thank you. We're doing fine. We're just, interviewing, doing as much as we can.
Keeping ourselves busy.
Yeah. One thing we want to start with is in high school, you were very successful, but we'll get to that in a second. What was your childhood pre-high school like in terms of sports? Did you have any favorite teams? How did you start sports?
So I'm one of five. So I don't know if you guys found out that information, but I'm the oldest of five siblings. So my dad didn't play sports. He worked, and his handball was his sport. So at my brother's wedding, actually, if you want to listen to a good best man speech, I threw him under the bus about not being an athlete and then having five kids that were athletes. But in my first experience, my dad, threw me into sport. My mom tells a story that he went to Barnes and Nobles and picked up a how to coach soccer and got me out there. It was my first coach from soccer, moved on to playing football. And then literally, I think I've touched every sport: tennis, basketball, wrestling, obviously, baseball. I mean, there wasn't a sport that I didn't, get on the field, get on the court, and get involved in just to try it. And it's sort of, fast forward to the person I am now and all the things I do in New Canaan. Just, it was a Swiss Army. I love to just get involved, love the relationships that, I had on different teams, and you got to meet different kids from all over playing different sports. So, that's what it was like growing up. And then, as I got older and, I'm 13 years older than my youngest sister, who's an athlete also. She's a junior at Binghamton. And, we competed all through, even me going to college. And I think there was a lot of friction in the beginning, and at least my high school days, because I was who I was, and I had two other siblings in the high school behind me. So not easy to kind of follow that path. So we battled a lot, but now in my older age, and as a coach and a teacher, our relationship has definitely grown a lot stronger. I'm an uncle now, so I got a different role, and I play a different role. But it was fun growing up, and growing up with a lot of siblings was very competitive. And we used to laugh all the time about make dinner jokes when dinner was called, if you weren't one of the first people there, you were getting the scraps. So that's sort of how it went for a while.
Fighting for survival there in the Rushton household. Right. It's funny because you were saying about all the different sports you played, and you really tried to get into everything. And I see now, you got the New Canaan wrestling polo, because obviously you're a New Canaan wrestling coach. You'll be heading into your second year next year. You're the offensive coordinator for the lacrosse team. You work at South School. You're a teacher there, and you started building up the TV program there, which is great for us to have more people in the future. And then obviously you work and you're a director with the Athletic Foundation. So you continue to keep up so many different jobs all at once today. So bring us back to those high school days, though, before you got all these jobs here in New Canaan. You grew up in Long Island. You went to West Islip High, and they weren't a big lacrosse school really nationally before you got there. But when you got there, and maybe with your teammates, you were able to get your team nationally ranked. At one point, you were the second best team in the country. You went 22-1 in your junior season, which is insane. Tell us about that journey and your expectations for your sporting career in high school, and then where it took you throughout your high school journey.
Yeah, I think, there was definitely some, one-offs and some great athletes, that came through West Islip prior to us. But, it started in the youth program. We had some great youth coaches, some great youth dads that, were heavily involved, and, they brought us up as a group. So, my best memories are with my best friends that I grew up with. And I remember our senior class was huge. And, we always, probably within like 4 years of me, we kept getting to, the county playoffs and just, couldn't get over that hump, And, New York's a little bit different than Connecticut. You basically, after your regular season and once you qualify for the playoffs, you have to win out. So, you lose the first round game, you're done, right? You got no shot at a state championship, no shot at your county championship. Where when I first got here and started coaching, in Ridgefield was my first coaching job. I kind of was like, how could you, looking at banners in high school and saying like, how could you be a state champion but not be a county champion the same year? So, it took me a long time to kind of figure that out, because it's, obviously there's more schools in New York and, competitions, strength of schedule and competition is crazy. But yeah, I mean, my junior year, we won, our county, Suffolk County. We battled some great names, and Northport and Ward Melville were sort of our Dariennes of Long Island and how to get over them. And then, so there's 2 counties in Long Island. So after you got out of Suffolk County, you had to take on the arch rival from Nassau County. So we played Farmingdale. West Islip was a big school back then. So it's classes. So we were in Class A, and we took Farmingdale on, and like I said, once you get to the county, it was almost, we were paving the way. I mean, no other West Islip team had ever gotten that far or played those teams. So it was all new to us, but we were such a tight knit. It wasn't many, underclassmen. It was it was very heavily relied by juniors and seniors and majority seniors, with very few juniors, me being one of them that actually stepped on the field and contributed. And we beat Farmingdale that year, and, we win what now is a Long Island championship. So we were crowned Long Island champions for the first time, like I said, paving the way. We actually had a down. So then you go to a downstate championship game, and it's, sometimes it's played at Army, is usually a neutral site. And I'll never forget it. We were driving up 95 and headed to Army, and our bus driver at the time just took a bad route. We got stuck in New York Yankee traffic, and we ended up showing up at like, I want to say 15 minutes before the game time, and sort of had to kind of get ready in a quick, our mindset wasn't right. And we had to play Shenandoah Hoa, who was a downstate team, downstate, just upstate, but downstate. It was the game, and we're down like 5-1, 5-2 or something at halftime. Just I think our legs, weren't warmed up from the long bus ride, getting stuck in traffic. We end up winning that game, and then the next after that is the New York State Class A state championship, which, like I said, continued paving new foundation, new way for our high school. And we played powerhouse West Genesee, and to this day, I think their head coach just retired like 1 or 2 years ago. We got to that game, and it actually was played at Hofstra. So it switches between Hofstra and Stony Brook, and we couldn't pull off a state championship my junior year, and that was tough, to get all the way there. So heading into my senior year, it was sort of the same thing. We had, like you said, we were ranked number 2. I think my senior year, we were still in the top 10, maybe in the top 5, and we sort of had the same expectations. And because we returned a lot of people, our junior class was just as strong as our senior class. Guys from my high school started going big time Division I, where all of a sudden now it became, sort of like this dream, right? And we, looking back at it now and looking at how strong, West Islip is and how many state I think there's one point, I wish I had this, and I'll have to look back and maybe you can include it, but I think in a 10-year span from 2005 to 2015, West Islip was like 200 wins, like 3 losses, something unbelievable. I mean, they won we won 9 Long Island championships in a row. After that, they won 5 or 6 state championships. I mean, the trajectory of the program, and like I said, looking back at it now, we sort of were the pioneer class, right?
Yeah.
That 2004 team. that, and now being a coach, you realize what a high school team can do for your community as far as like your youth program and take it to the next level. And we got guys that are playing professionally now. We got guys that are head coaches all over the place. Now West Islip is one. We were on the cover Inside Lacrosse a couple of years. I mean, they're just that school. You go back and you look at the banners. My parents are still there, and you look at all the banners in the high school. It's pretty cool. And this year we actually had the opportunity as a wrestling team to go back to my high school, which was super cool. And, like all the kids were looking at the banners and they're just like, holy, they couldn't believe, where I went to school. And it was neat. My picture was up on the wall at the Hall of Fame there, and the kids got to see that. So what'd you say?
A little street cred.
Yeah, a little street cred. It was super cool. I enjoyed doing that. But when you're going through it, you don't think about those things. But now 32 years old, you start looking back and seeing, and that's why I guess kind of segued a little bit into my coaching career. I think a little bit that's why I put so much time, and why I expand such a broad net, because I really value the youth program. And since I started in both lacrosse and wrestling, I put just as much time into the youth that I did do the high school. So, in both those seasons, my day usually ends around like 9 o'clock, because I go right from a high school practice right to a youth practice. So it was great. High school was awesome. And, then I went on to college and played some of those the kids I played with, against in high school. Lacrosse is a small community. So it was special.
Like you said, you went into college at Sacred Heart, and you played basically all 4 years as a midfielder there. In 2007, your sophomore year, you were offensive MVP on the team. You were first in goals. And then moving on, junior and senior year, you were captain. You recorded 43 goals, which as a midfielder, it's pretty good. And then you started all 49 games in the 2008 and 2009 season. So throughout your high school and college career, in high school, you were a captain on the 2005 team. You're a football captain, I believe. Did that leadership kind of transition to the strive to teach, or how was that transition?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I mean, I've been a captain in high school in every sport I played, and then same with college. But to give you a little maybe inspiration for some of the young kids, I was in the same mindset. I mean, think about that high school career, right? Like, I think I lost 2 or 3 high school games in my career, and I go to a college that I think only turned Division I in like 98, or and I went to school in 2005. So you're talking about a school that was on the rise, right? I wanted to be close to home because my large family, I didn't really want to go far. I had the opportunity to get my number, and I knew that it was a school that I could probably play like right off the bat, and that's what I wanted to do. Just being a competitor, the big name school, turned me off. I didn't want to sit on the bench for 2 or 3 years. And, like I said, I love to compete. So, but when I did get there, my freshman year, you realize you're not playing against, 17, 18-year-olds again, right? You're playing against transfers, guys that are, much older than you, much bigger, much faster, much stronger. And, I think it was a real wake up call for me. But I will say, from playing so many sports as a kid, my lacrosse trajectory like immediately increased when I went there, because I went from only playing lacrosse, let's say from March to June. Yeah, did I do some camps and play some box leagues and do some things during the winters? And yeah, I did. But when you go to college and you're playing Division I sport, that's your life besides classes, right? You're waking up, having a 6 o'clock class or lift, and then going to practice for the next 3-4 hours and going back to class, and it's a big commitment. And after my freshman year, I wasn't playing. I think I stepped on the field a couple times my freshman year, and games where we were probably getting blown out, or we were doing the blowing out. And I was like, I came back, talked to my family. I called my high school football coach, and I said, you know what, like, I don't think this is for me. I need to be playing. I need to be competing. So I for about 5 minutes, I contemplating, transferring or thinking about another school. And, my dad looked just, I know you don't know what my dad is, but, I get my work ethic from him, and, he let me vent, and he let me talk it out. And then, he goes, well, if you're not playing, what are you going to do to get better? What are you going to do to play? What are you going to do to put yourself in a position to play? And, he always gave me that chip. And it's almost like your parents saying, like, they're not yelling at you, but they're being disappointed. And he put it on, the ball was in my court. And if I had a problem, I had to do something about it. And I grinded my freshman summer. You talk to some of my friends. I didn't see a lot of my friends that summer. I worked with my dad. And then, I was grinding. I was playing in summer leagues. I was, finding any camp, anything that I could do to improve my game. And my sophomore year at college in a fall ball, we went up to Harvard and we played Harvard and UMass. And I still, at the time, I want to say I had a great fall. And this was like the last fall, competition you play before you go on your winter break. And depth chart might have had me at like the 6th or 7th midi my sophomore year in college. And, when I got in the game, we played UMass first. I think I had 3 or 4 goals, and then we played Harvard. I finished off the day with like 7 or 8 goals. And then, the rest from there is just history. And, but that's what goes to show you, when you put, that hard work and you decide to commit to something, I think good things will happen. I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but I do attribute, and my work ethic, to what I had and my success, because, I didn't complain about it. I didn't point the fingers. I pointed the thumbs back at this guy and said, you got something to prove. You want to make a change. You got to do it first with yourself. So, for every kid that maybe watches this, that's not everybody that becomes successful has an easy path. We're teaching biographies in 3rd grade now, and usually you find that, right? People have things that they got to overcome. Or some kind of obstacle that stands in their way, and you're faced with adversity. The only person that's going to change it is you. So, but yeah, I think my leadership, in those, I don't go out and seek leadership opportunities. I think leadership opportunities find me just because of the type of person I am. And, I like to do anything I do, whether it's teaching, coaching, being a fiance, soon to be husband, being an uncle. I want to be the best at, those things. And that's sort of when you want to be the best at something, every little thing you do matters. And I just finished a book, and I forget who it was now, but, maybe it was Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. I think it was Steve Jobs, but he talks about, he used to paint the back of his cabinets, even though he knows that those cabinets were going to be on the wall. No one was going to see them. So I think when you think about it like that, you finish the job, no matter what, it, right? You're the person that's going to know, that what's there, and if you did it fully. And so I think that put me in the position. But you ask my mom, she's gonna laugh. She told me that I would be a teacher my whole life, and I kept putting it off. No, this is not gonna happen. Not gonna, and I graduated in 2009. Market wasn't great. I was a finance, economics major minor, and I had the opportunity to go back to school and do my 5th year and get my master's in education. And I said, you know what? I'll go for it. And the funny story is I was sitting in my first class. I think it was like my 21st or 22nd birthday. And, they're going around in the room, and I just graduated in May from my undergrad, and I started up my master's in June. And at the same school, just different department. And, I'm sitting there, and, they're going around, oh, where are you interning in the fall? Like, what's your plan? And I'm sitting there saying, listen, I just signed up for this. Like, this wasn't my plan. This was my first plan. I have nothing. And a girl in my class, she said, you know what? I have a principal that's looking for an intern. Do you want me to reach out and connect you? And I said, yeah, sure. Where is it? And she, she's like, New Canaan. And I'm like, I don't know what's New Canaan. And, go there. And I'm going to rewind for 2 seconds. I didn't say where's New Canaan. It actually, my junior year, this is how small this world is. My junior year, when you have to go on an internship, right, and do your internship, I interned across the street from where I live on Locust Avenue right now for a company called National Legacy Group, for a guy named Clint Hall, who, if you look at it in your archives, he's one of 5 boys. He went to New Canaan High School. He was a tight end at University of Delaware, played with Alex Smith. he was my, guy that picked me up because his business partner was a guy named Mike Mazzio, who was a Sacred Heart alum. So I got connected through that realm. And these guys would come to my college games my junior and senior year. And when Canaan came back around in that classroom, I was like, man, this has got to be fate. Like, I know, that's when there was a Forestry Deli. Like, we're going back like a long time when where the Pet Value or whatever that is in town across from the dance studio used to be, Forestry Deli. And, so I came back here and I mean, that's it, man. I've been in Canaan ever since 2010, 2011, and the rest is history.
I mean, you brought up some fantastic points there. And looking at your resume, you would think it was an easy road, but when you break it down like that, and that road you had after your freshman year at Sacred Heart, and your dad pushing you to get better and to push yourself, and it really shows that, you looking at somebody from the outside, you don't know how much work they put into something until you get the chance to talk to them. And that's great to see that really it was that dedication that you had inside of you that, a lot of people should have to get you over the hump in your college career. Now, you mentioned that your mother was preaching that you'd be a teacher your whole life. Maybe it came naturally to you as someone who was a leader in high school and in college. But tell us about your love, I guess, for education. Obviously, the South School banner's behind you. You're a third grade teacher there. And, you're not only are you a great coach here in New Canaan, but tell us just how much you care about academics, what it means to you. You also won the Enterprise Student Athlete Award. So it seems like you've been pretty good academically for a while. So tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, yeah, I probably wouldn't be coaching if I didn't, love kids and love to educate and be a leader. But, I'm a OG Westie Whale. That's where I started my career at West School for 5 years. And, I learned a lot. I actually, I had a lot of different leaders and there was a lot of, I think maybe four principals that went through there while I was there. And Dr. Kareni, who's now the assistant superintendent, was someone who really, she, when you think about a good leader, they know how to kind of communicate with the type of person you are, right? And each kid and each adult needs to be handled a different way. And she knew I had that athletic background, and she almost coached me, right? Like she told me, like, after my she knew how much I love sports, and she said, my first year, Bobby, this is a tough district, and first of all, New Canaan doesn't hire brand new teachers with no experience, right? Like, this is the type of district that New Canaan is, and how strong it is that they value education, very much. And this wasn't my high school experience as far as teaching and education. I mean, what you guys go through and how you come out in the schools that this community had the colleges that people go and almost a standard, right? The NESCAC schools, the Ivy schools are the top institutions. That comes from, your upbringing and your elementary schools, your middle schools, your high schools. And, so it was an honor for me first, just to actually, I remember after my internship, so I did, and if I'm rambling, tell me to shut up, because I will, but I could talk for days. But, after my internship year, I'm not a Connecticut native besides going to college here. I didn't know what I was doing. A lot of my friends are working in the city or back home in Long Island. And, I sent out like 70 resumes, and I'll never forget. I got 2 answers. I got East School, sent me back one just out of courtesy, I think. It answered my, wrote me back and saying thank you. If something happens, we'll let you know. And then Brunswick, the school, actually sent it to the upper school, and obviously I'm only K6 certified, so they just sent me back saying you sent it to the wrong school. So I mean, that's how competitive that job market was, as far as being a teacher in Fairfield County. But I always go back to sports. It was like, hang your head, or try to make the most of it, right? What are you going to do about it? And I ended up accepting a job being a one-on-one special education teaching assistant, and that was valuable experience for me, because I was in one classroom every single day, and I got to that was really my first probably opportunity to really start to connect with a student, figure out what worked, right? What worked well. There was a lot of trial and error, working with the families. This is the time when you could drive to the family's house and then get on the bus with the kid and drop back off at the house. But it put me in the classroom every single day, and it gave me the experience I needed to then sit on an interview and present myself in a way that I knew what I was talking about, right? You go to school and you apply that learning, it's one thing, but when you're kind of thrown into it and can teach from experience and talk from experience in your resume and in your interview process, I mean, that just becomes, powerful. And, I'll never forget that experience. So then getting hired my first year, Dr. Crenny said, listen, you can't coach, coaching's off the table. I need you to really commit to, being a leader in here. Right. And learning from the peers. And, I was 22 when I got hired, and, started brand new, knowing absolutely pretty much nothing besides, right, educating and being in the classroom, got thrown in the fire. And, now I can't. I think so. Bella Dial was my first class, and I think Bella's a junior, or maybe is she a junior or a senior?
Right, senior grade.
I don't believe so. Maybe I think she just graduated.
Yeah, last
or
year.
Maybe that. So my first class might be gone, right? So you think about it now, and you're like, holy cow! Like, the kids are growing, and time moves on. But I spent 5 years there, and it was awesome, and I learned a lot from West School. And then it was time for me. I think I taught for 2 years without coaching. Once I became a teacher, but rewinding to my Ridgefield days when I was doing the special education one-on-one teaching assistant, that's when I sort of met Roy Colsey at Ridgefield, and I started working with him and took over the freshman program there, and then was on his sideline when they won the state championship in 2011 or 10-11, and then I think it was my winner of my first year, Alex Witten, reached out, and I felt like I was being recruited all over again, right? Like I talked about the lacrosse community being small. People found out that I was working here, I was an educator here, and I was going up to Ridgefield, and they were like, why isn't this guy coaching in our program? And, Pat Russell, who's big into our youth program, all these guys had their kids going to West. And, next thing I know, I get in a phone call, and, I was at a mall in Long Island, and, I had to call Roy and say, hey man, I'm not driving 25 minutes on, a 7 to get up there. So I'm gonna join this staff. And, that's when I got into coaching, and, it was, some of those seniors to this day are my closest friends. And, because at that time when you're 22 and, you got kids that are 17, 18, I really had that player mentality, coach relationship, right, and mentality, and I was still, sort of in it. And I got to say, from like an X's and O's standpoint, when I coached at Ridgefield, everything was fresh in my mind, but I wasn't doing what I'm doing now as far as the communication aspect, as far as building my brand, right? I was focusing on winning and losing games, right? That was it. I wanted to win games. I knew how to run a practice. I was fresh out of college. I played Division I, that sold players. Obviously, you go to coach under Roy, 4-time All-American at Syracuse, and who he is, right? I would stand on the same field as him. So, but to learn from Roy and pick up things along the way, and, to learn from Dr. Crenny, I mean, these are people that, besides my parents, that have a significant impact in my life. And then, Coach Witten for bringing me on staff, and, now Coach Buzzy and I, we're best friends. I've been coaching with him for now, 9-10 years. And, he's a mentor to me. I mean, there's so many people that have helped me, and Coach Gallo at the wrestling realm. I mean, there's some unbelievable, you guys you got unbelievable resources at your fingertips. And, but, it comes with a lot of work and a lot of molding. And, I'm fortunate that I've had people, like I said, like Dr. Crenny, who said, you know what, here's the type of school you're in. I know what you can do for the community as far as sports, but, I need you to kind of put that motivation, put that energy and effort into teaching. And, I love kids, and that's, this is a relationship business first. It's a human system first. And, you got to be able to connect with kids. And when you do that, I laugh. I'm probably not the best, teacher as far as like academics and getting, knowing math or reading, writing, social studies. But, my ability to connect with kids on the level that I do gets so much more out of them, right? Because they just feel, they're in a happy place, right? We talk about this emotional intelligence. We talk about, all these things. And I think they live in a place that they're comfortable, right? They leave for school and they're coming to a place that they love. That I feel now being here so long, and my fiance is from New Canaan. That I'm from here. And I laugh. I'm like, there needs to be like a ceremony. I need to be like brought into this and be part of New Canaan, right? And because it is a special place, and you feel that pride whether you're in school or whether you're in you're teaching. And I actually just got off a call with Mia Carroll couple yesterday actually, and she talked about that a lot too, about just being a large part of the community, and what that you grow up like that, right? And I never saw that because it wasn't like sports and wasn't on that level. And now to see it from through a coaching and teaching perspective, I mean, being a teacher, I wouldn't be the coach I am without being the educator I am. And I wouldn't have the pull, to be honest. Like I wouldn't be able to take over that wrestling program without my influence in the education system. I mean, I used athletics to help some of my boys who like won't be quote unquote the athletes, right? And I get them into situations, and I laugh. You asked how I was adjusting to this e-learning, and I start my message off every year with my kids the same, and telling them that my job is to make you being comfortable, being uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zone, because that's when you grow the most, right? That's when you're able to grow and you learn things, right? Whether you succeed or whether you fail at it. If you try something new yourself. And now we're in a world where I'm on the Zoom calls and Google Meets with 8-year-olds every day, and the fact that and we had a Flipgrid session that was like, give me your favorite quote.
A favorite quote. Oh, you're hitting us on a spot.
So we did a favorite quote, and you just learned like how much you influence. Like you can influence a kid, and you don't understand the power as a teacher, as a leader, as a coach. They were given like Bear Bryant quotes, Vince Lombardi quotes. I mean, they don't have me as a teacher. That doesn't exist. And their messages were about perseverance. Their message was about work ethic. Their message was about being a leader. And I was like, almost brought me to tears, saying like, holy cow! Like I just saw myself in 18 third graders, right? And that's the kind of passion that's just unbelievable.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot about learn by doing, being a part of community, and you're actually a very big part of the New Canaan athletic community. You're the executive director of the Athletic Foundation for almost 2 years now, and you guys have done a lot with new turf fields. We have a bunch of new turf fields at the high school, but what has been your favorite thing you've done, and what have you been most proud of in the Athletic Foundation?
So I mean, I think my most important or special thing about the Athletic Foundation is it's introduced me to a network of people that I might not have otherwise been privy to, and Mike Benevento, being the chairman, and all the people on that board that I sit on with them and as an ex officio, but we meet at the end of every month, and just sitting there with the great minds of this community. And they're people I probably would have never had met. And it also it expands my reach, right? And when you're trying to make an influence and you're trying to make an impact in a community, you want to know as many people as you can, right? And you want to obviously know them in a positive way, and you want to be known for that. And that's what I try to do every time I try to meet someone new. It takes a little bit of getting to know me, and then after that, that's another relationship that I have that or maybe I'm going to meet their kids in a sport or in the classroom. So there's just tremendous amount of hardworking people that give back their time to this community. And I want to represent that, right? So everything I do for the town of New Canaan, for the Athletic Foundation, for South School, I want to represent that at the highest level, because those are the people that I represent. So the Athletic Foundation sort of puts me, it just opened up so many doors for me, from that. I started, I got introduced to, a bunch of football guys. So I sit on now the youth football board, as an actual member of the football board, where some of these other boards I sit on as an ex officio. So like, being a high school football guy and a kid that loved football, and I'm pumped for hopefully Lucas tonight to get drafted and see Zach Allen. I mean, these are some unbelievable things going on, and now like to sit in a room with all those football minds. But Athletic Foundation, like I said, but they're doing so much for this community to allow that pride and that tradition to carry on, and to be one of the best facilities in the area, and to attract people here. I mean, it's a beautiful community. I mean, the town aspect, the family aspect of this, and people want to come here and spend weekends at the fields with their young kids. And like I said, that you walk on those fields, and to say you walked on the same field as a Zach Allen, a Lucas Niang, a Michael Krause. I mean, these are some unbelievable athletes. Jane Charlton, who's going to Duke, and Olivia Hump, right, and Mia Carroll, and so when you ask me what's my favorite part has been going, the theme of connecting is every month I get to call a new alumni that gets recommended to me and have a conversation with them, and put them as like our alumni spotlight. So if you visit, here's a plug, the Athletic Foundation website, CanaanAF.com. There's an opportunity for you to see, alumni spotlight. Like I did, Hanratty, who went to Notre Dame. I've talked to Olivia Hump. I've talked to Mia Carroll. I've talked to Harry Stanton. All these guys that, in the last, my 2 years have all been sort of celebrated and asked a couple questions as far as what about their experience, about their rivalry. But sitting on the phone and talking to them for an hour, I want to keep connecting with alumni, and I want to make alumni feel that same connection that these youth and high school kids, right? Because here I am, I graduated 2005 from West Islip. I don't even have that much besides our reunions when we come back to celebrate sort of our wins and our successes when we hit milestones. There's not a lot of communication. So, the role that I take with the Athletic Foundation is really just trying to get the word out and trying to, like you guys are doing right now, right? Like educating the community of people that either are in sports or maybe they're not in sports, but they're interested in what New Canaan has to offer. That's what I want to do. And I you talk about, setting up the whole South School SSTV broadcast that's going to go live on Monday. So I'll have to share it with you guys. But, I think it doesn't happen without support, like Roman Sobolski, right? Your TV, working with him, and we produce, months of footage and things together to get every high school coach to talk about what this community has. And that experience was just, it was unbelievable. I mean, to get interviewed, to see what you guys do, and the lighting and the microphones and getting B-roll, right? I'm learning all this terminology, right? You do all this stuff. I mean, it took a long time, and breaking down the clips of people and putting it all together. So those are my two so far for 2 years. I think the networking and connecting with alumni, and then just sharing, what New Canaan has to offer has been great. And, it's helped me kind of grow my career and hopefully grow where I want to be, right? It's giving me these opportunities to learn and grow and still be able to coach and teach. And that's what I love to do. So, I'm thankful for all those people, like I said, on that board that plays such an important role in that.
So yeah, I remember that video last year, and I was able to interview Coach Marinelli. That was awesome. I also interviewed, as you mentioned, Mr. Benevento, and I know the Beneventos really well, and I know his son Matt is a good friend of mine. He was a junior wrestling captain under you last year, alongside Tyler, who obviously Tyler Sung, I mean, one of the greatest New Canaan athletes I think to ever walk the halls, and the way he ended his career last year, spectacular. Before he heads off to Lehigh, and I know that was your first year as the head coach of New Canaan. You took over, obviously, for Paul Gallo, a legend. I know Paul is still obviously very deeply entrenched in the wrestling program after 30 years. But tell us a little bit about your relationship with him in the first 6 years you were on the staff as the assistant coach for the team, in the transition to being the head coach. Tell us about his role in you being integrated into New Canaan and what he means to this community.
Yeah, I mean, the first person, honestly, that I got to thank is Mr. Bucci. He was involved in the youth program, and Mr. Bucci, through actually a guy, Lou Garcia, who is his son. One of his sons goes to St. Luke's, and his other son's in 8th grade. Connected us because he knew I wrestled in high school, and so it started there. And I actually, my first year before I started with the high school was with just the youth, and I was coaching the 5th through 8th graders. And then Coach Gallo, Coach Gallo, he lives and breathes New Canaan, right? He's like, who's coaching in my room, and who's this guy? And kind of the same way like Alex Whitten sourced me out, and that was it. I mean, he took me under his wing. He laughs and jokes and says, wrestling's the only sport where you have to do you have to do the sport, right? You have to get on the mat. You got to actually physically wrestle and be there for the kids. I can't just blow a whistle in wrestling. So he was getting up there and he's like, listen, I need you to start coming to practice. I need you to start rolling around with some of the kids. And I left, I thought, oh man, 25, I think 26 when I started. I was like, I could do this. And I think my first year I had like a stiff neck. Next year, like my back, that's a sport where if you don't start, you're not tangling up every once in a while, it gets difficult. But Paul was awesome. And he's been, one of the most, inspirational people in my life. And as you don't find too many people who are willing to invest in a young coach like Paul. And but like I said, he's a product of New Canaan, right? 19 whatever graduate of New Canaan. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but and then he came back and started coaching, and I think 80 or 81 was his first year, and
89, but yeah, still 30 years.
89, sorry, so maybe a graduate, yeah, 89, and so he's just a product. That's what people here do, and he saw talent and he saw someone that he can mold, and he'd been asking me for years to take over, and that he was done, he would be there, and I was like, Paul, man, I'm not ready. There's more to being a head coach. The easiest job, I will say, the easiest job to have is an assistant coach, right? I mean, you're not dealing with the parents, you're not making the tough decisions. You're having fun, right? You're wrestling with the kids, you're having fun with the kids, and there's a role, right? You got to do the schedule. You got to be keeping track. I mean, the things that Paul Gallo does, man, if you spend a day with him, I mean, if he wasn't here, there's no way I'd take over that job. I mean, I need him just as much as he needs me. But that's why, I wouldn't take the job without his blessing, without his support, and, without him being involved. And, the first thing I did when I got hired was I went to the New Canaan Library, and I went to the archives of the Advertiser, which is, in big books in the back behind that 3D printer over there. And, I went back to his high school days. I went back to his coaching days and, found everything out about the program. I educated myself as much as I could to learn about what New Canaan is. That's where our Twitter handle is NC Matmen. They were called the Matmen back in the day. And, that's something I wanted to have that piece of him still a part of it, even though his name was off of it. And, we celebrated him. We threw him a big party at Waveney, and celebrated him with all his alumni. And 30 years, you coach a lot of kids, a lot of families, especially wrestling here, and then obviously going on to wrestle at UConn before they dropped the program, and then coming back. And he tells a story like the New Canaan program might have died without Paul Gallo, as far as having a program, and he saw that, and then he came back. So Paul has been an instrumental figure in my coaching, and still is, and still will always be. You get to learn a lot from a guy that's willing to take the time and do it. And when you know Paul, he gives a lot to it. And you ever been to his office, you can eat a lot of Tootsie Rolls and cheese puffs before getting out of there. But no, he's great. And, and it's been great. I've enjoyed it, and it's been a lot of fun. My first year was a blast, and I look forward to it.
It's interesting to see how most of all the students know Paul Gallo. We know him for basically orchestrating a lot of the major school events, from yearbook orders with Mr. Z to a bunch of the sporting events, buses, all that, and see how he still spends that much time with you and with the wrestling program. And moving on, you're busy as well. Like you said, he's busy. There's things we haven't even covered. You're one of the directors of Eclipse Lacrosse, a local club team. You're director of the K-4 youth lacrosse program here. And it's just astonishing to see how much you take on and how energized you are every single day to continue doing that and continue caring for the community.
Swiss Army knife, man. I can pull it out, and that's what it is. But like you can't run a high school program without being involved in your youth. You can't. And I'll share one story for the youth. I have 10 boys in my class, and every third grade boy wrestled this year for me because I coach the K4 program. I mean, that's how important it is, and that. There's some kids that probably would have never touched the mat or strapped on wrestling shoes or even gave it a shot, and they may not stick with it. But to be that figure, right, that consistent face that these kids get to see and get to come, I'd love to hopefully still be around here in 10 years to watch one of those kids become the next Tyler Sung because he came in the room. And every one of those kids, and I thank Tyler for this. I printed up. Tyler's FCAC photo, which is like one of the coolest photos ever, right? With the ref holding his hand up, and made it into a card. And on one side of the card, I wrote a special message to the kid, and on the other side, Tyler wrote a note. So that's going to impact one of these kids, and that's going to make a difference. So I do a lot, and I enjoy doing it, but hopefully it pays dividends in the long run, and the kids remember it, and then boom, you build another leader, right? So. Yep. That's the point.
So as Cortland mentioned, you juggle a lot of different hats, and you mentioned earlier that quotes you were mentioning made you emotional when you were seeing these kids with these motivational quotes because that's what drives them. So I was looking at a quote. You mentioned Lombardi, a great quote from him. Winners never quit and quitters never win. And I think that kind of defines some point in your career, and you never quit at what you did. Is there any quote? What's your favorite quote? What drives you to keep doing so many different things when you can? But you got one, maybe your dad, maybe an athlete, who cares? What's your favorite quote maybe off the top of the dome?
So I got a good one from Thomas Edison that is opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work.
That's a good one.
And that just kind of sums up the type of person I'm willing to kind of put on the work boots, so to speak. And my nickname, and when you guys I'm sure give kids nicknames when you're broadcasting games and doing that sort of thing, but I was always known as like the blue collar kid. Like I wasn't going to be scoring hundreds of goals, but no one was going to beat me to a ground ball, or I'd finish through the line, or that's the type of kid I was and an athlete I was. And that's why I love that quote. But most recently, I'll give you a bonus one here. Most recently, the one I share with my class because of everything we're going through right now is from Franklin Roosevelt that says, no sailor ever distinguished himself in calm seas. And I think when you're going through all this new, it's easy to sort of obviously do the things you're doing every day and you're on autopilot, and then you get thrown something like this, a pandemic, or it could be anything, right? But you really learn about yourself when you're thrown in the fire and you're faced with challenges and obstacles that you got to overcome.
It's interesting to see, very common theme throughout this, especially for you as working. So the blue collar man really kind of fits you. Well, I've certainly enjoyed talking to you. If you guys want to learn more about the alumni and the Athletic Foundation, which Coach Rushton is involved, it's newcanaanaf.org. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NCTV8 and follow us on Instagram. Coach Rushton, thank you again.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
All right. And we'll see you guys next time. This has been Rans Revealed, Episode 7.